When I was at the gallery in Toronto, we talked at length about how you present images. And clearly, if you have a gallery, it's pretty easy to, put up a show and have a presentation. But you've got a lot of different ways of presenting images. So why don't you show us some?
That's, I think, a critical issue for all photographers is how do we share our work? And of course, there is the classic, hey Jeff, let me show you my prints.
Yeah.
And so you take a bunch of prints, you put them in your paper box, and you pass them around.
Yeah.
Now, that's fine as far as it goes, but presentation is really important. And so this is the kind of thing I would do with a friend, not on a more formal basis. So let's put those over there.
Okay.
And of course, this being the modern era, there is showing your stuff on a tablet, on a computer, on an iPad. Here's a little slideshow. Hand you the tablet, and you can look at the shots. And this is good.
Put it up on the website.
Yeah, and here's the other alternative. I have my own website, but you can put them on Flickr, you can put them on all of the photo sharing sites, and so putting one's work online is now actually the most popular way of sharing images. But let's talk about some of the more traditional.
Yep.
And of course, the thing that everyone would like to do is have their work published in a magazine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and you had that honor actually in February of 2009,
2009.
in Lenswork.
Yeah,
I'm quite envious of you about that.
I was absolutely tickled when Brooks Jensen phoned me and said, we'd like to feature you in Lenswork. But it's an honor. It was really good. And so I chose some of my images. There's an interview, and then there is a small portfolio. And this is this is something that Brooks decided to call In Their Landscape. And so pictures from all over, from Botswana, from Madagascar, from Morocco, from the Amazon, Bangladesh. I've been fortunate with all my workshops and travel to really have gotten around the world. And here's from China. So
it's a wonderful presentation, very well printed.
Quad tone printing,
yeah.
Very high quality.
Yeah.
Now, Brooks publishes these small folios. And here are two. This is one that's based on what we had in the magazine called In Their Landscape. And these are things that people can do themselves. In fact, Brooks, on his website, has articles and tutorials and even does seminars on how to create these kinds of presentations. And this is very inexpensive to do because you do them yourself. And he teaches you how to create these little presentation folios. And then these are simply original prints. Now again, talking about presentation being everything. So,
yeah, a little brochure.
Little brochure.
And a colophon.
Yeah, and this is all printed at home, so to speak. And then separation sheets.
I'll hold that down because we've got a little breezy.
This is the kind of thing you can use Japanese art paper. There are various things. Again, a good art supply store will provide these.
I've got that framed at home. Thank you for that print.
Oh, you're very welcome. So this is from Madagascar, from the Amazon, and I won't go through the whole list, but this is a very nice way of presenting.
But something that is not terribly expensive and not terribly difficult, and anybody can do on their own with a little bit of practice and expertise.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a very nice way of presenting your work, and it's the tactility. You can hold it in your hand. Very
and that's
enjoyable.
A situation where the paper that you actually select for the little folio is hypercritical in terms of the tactile. This is not mounted and framed behind glass.
Exactly.
The feel of the paper is very important.
Feel is important. So now let's talk about that presentation of original prints. And what I've done is I've made mistakes. One of the mistakes...
Well, that's the great thing is you learn from mistakes.
Oh, you bet. What I decided was that I wanted to produce some limited edition portfolios, and to try and keep the costs down, and we'll look in a little while about custom-made folios, is I decided that I would purchase these real prepared off-the-shelf folios. And the folio is very nice. First of all, over a time, this is now several years old, the paper covering here has wrinkled from humidity. Also,
so
I
it has
thought,
your cover.
yeah, I thought that the idea of pasting this on, well, that didn't work. That was a bad idea. But this form of presentation is actually very nice, cover notwithstanding. And so...
You're actually touching those prints without gloves?
White gloves. From my gallery days. You know, when I sell these portfolios...
Sell them with a pair of gloves?
I sell them with a pair of gloves.
Yeah.
The portfolio comes in a nice presentation box. It comes with a pair of gloves. And this makes the whole thing just that little bit more precious.
Well, and the other thing is, quite honestly, it will, wearing the white gloves, will cut down on the wear and tear. It kind of reminds you to take care of the images, because ink on paper, even though they can last for a really, really long time, they are still fragile.
Acids in your fingers, grease on your fingers, all of these are detrimental to the longevity.
That's a really nice, subtle image.
That's China, the Wangshan Mountains, the Yellow Mountains. And again, so this is
You really are a pretty darn good photographer there, Michael.
Yeah, not bad for a graybeard. So this is a very nice way of presenting one's work. And
so did you pay them to go out there?
Yes, we did. We hired these fishermen to be out at moonrise, and I had my ephemeris and my calculator, and I looked up where the moon was going to be, and as always happens, the timing never quite works. I wanted the moon to be between those two peaks, and by the time we got the guys in the boats lined up, the moon had moved there, but actually I think it works kind of nicely. And
this is the fishermen that use birds?
Yes, they use cormorants. And they have a rope around the bird's neck. The cormorant is put in the water, it swims down, catches the fish, they yank the rope, prevents the fish from swallowing, the bird from swallowing the fish, and then they haul it on board. It's a traditional...
Tough life for the bird.
Yeah, well, they do get to eat the odd fish.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is one way of presenting your work.
And I remember seeing this and thinking, well, that was pretty nice.
Yeah. So again, I would now choose a different pre-made portfolio case. So now we go to something more expensive. This is another way of presenting your work. So this is custom book-bound.
Bookbinding.
Right. So here what I've done is I've taken original prints and in Photoshop just added the text and printed them. And this is, if you look at the date, so this is 1996 to 2001, and so this was done in September of 2001. And the paper I was using was quite different than the papers we have today.
Yeah.
This was Epson Enhanced Matte, I think. We just had nowhere near the number of interesting
Any
papers.
idea what printer? The colors
10 years
actually
ago.
look pretty good.
Yeah, not bad, not bad.
Some of that's film.
Most of this is film scan. So this was shot with an X-Pan, Hasselblad X-Pan, Monument Valley. Lots of fun. And then at the back, there's an opportunity to do this type of, and this is a lot of tedious Photoshop layer work.
Yeah.
You know, but anyhow, it's kind of fun.
Or you could actually do it in InDesign.
I don't think InDesign existed then.
Yeah.
But an opportunity to tell a little bit about the location, what equipment was used. Noticing a lot of this was shot with a Rollei 6008. Interesting.
But this is a real nice presentation. Original prints, but bound.
But bound, and that's a really attractive way of doing it. And then I also had the bookbinder create these slip cases.
But not cheap.
Not cheap. I would say, if I remember correctly, then about $150 for the binding plus the slipcase. And then when you factor in the cost of the prints and the ink, and never mind your labor, not inexpensive. I think, if memory serves, I think I sold these, it was an edition of 100, and I sold these for about $1,200. And so those, and that included FedEx shipping anywhere in the world, which is worth about $100. There's about $250 worth of, whether it's bookbinding and paper and ink. So I think my costs were in the $300 range, and $100 for FedEx was $400, and I sold them for $1,250. So
not something that you would retire on with an edition of 100.
And I never did the full 100.
Yeah.
I think I did about 45 or 50.
One of the things that JP and I have talked about on your signed prints, you don't actually number.
I don't number prints, I number portfolios.
Yes. And I think that's an important distinction. JP will number prints, and he's got a reverse escalation. Basically, the first prints that he does actually are less expensive for his collectors. And as they become higher numbered, they become more scarce because he does do limited edition prints. So there's an escalating price. And I have the utmost respect for JP, and I don't have any problem with numbering prints, other than the fact that the tradition from which numbered prints came was stone lithography, where you literally created the stone. You would do artist proofs, and then once the artist decided that, okay, the stone is in condition, then you would literally start pulling the prints off the stone one by one by one, and as you made more prints, the stone got less precise, and eventually the stone itself limited the edition.
Right.
And then you always had the tradition of breaking the stone so that the no prints could ever be made additional. So that's kind of the basis of the numbering.
But in photography, whether it's traditional chemical photography or digital, there is no limit.
Yeah.
No limit that's imposed other than by ourselves.
Yeah.
Not
Well,
by the technology.
In chemical photography, analog photography, there was kind of a hand-by-hand making of the print, unless it was a machine print.
No.
And vintage prints are worth more, for example, than contemporary prints. I have contemporary estate prints from Ansel Adams, but I've got one vintage print from Ansel Adams that I really love. So that's all factored in.
The master's hands touched them.
Yeah.
Let's look at two other approaches.
And now we kind of move into the modern age a bit.
Exactly. So first let's look at companies like Blurb and Asuka, and there are local companies. This was done in Toronto by a local company called Picto. And these are not original prints. These are prints done by these printing companies. I'm not sure what printers are being used by these companies.
Well, for the most part, the print on demand use an indigo type printer. It is kind of a inkjet printer on steroids, really. It's not a traditional halftone printing, but they do print halftones.
They're good.
Yeah.
The print quality on any of these books is good. You can do the layout yourself. You can, all of these companies have layout software, so you can do InDesign, you can do their proprietary software, and you can combine. Here I've done it very simply, just plate number this, plate number that, and I didn't bother in this case. I just had a little end page. I did this in 2007. So very nice way.
I remember when you shot that. You were so excited to get the penguin and the jellyfish. One of the things that we'll point out, our good friend and colleague Seth Resnick is doing, he did a blurb book on Antarctica, as well as John Paul Caponegro. The upside of doing a blurb book is the fact that you upload it and it's literally print on demand. And yes, it's expensive on a per book price, but if you're an author like myself, I seriously consider looking at that as a business model, because traditional publishing and blurb and print on demand is really turning the publishing industry upside down, as are iPads and new media. So traditional publishing as an author, you get 15-20%, and the cost of printing is absorbed by the publisher. Well, in this case, you can actually do print on demand and mark up the price of the actual blurb cost of the book, mark it up, and depending upon the pricing and depending upon the type of printing, they have lots of different options. The pricey stuff is really expensive. The bottom line is that it can be a profitable venture for self-publishing your own work.
Yeah, as opposed to getting your 10 or 15% royalty
Yeah.
from a traditional publisher, if you can get a traditional publisher.
And unfortunately, these days, photographic publishing, photo publishing, has really gone to the dumps.
Yeah.
A number of the top publishers have kind of gone under, some in kind of nefarious ways, and now they have what's called vanity publishing, where you may have a really great body of work and the publisher may really want to publish your work, but they expect you to pay and contribute to the cost of the production. So, yeah.
Well, there's that, and then there is actually not going through a publishing company, but doing it yourself and doing a proper book. So here's an example of just that. Instead of going through a publisher, what I did was I had these printed directly by a printer in China, and I financed the whole thing. And this is a unique way of doing it, and it was pretty much only possible because of the website. I have an audience. I can reach a lot of people. So I fronted the whole cost of doing the book. And then I think it was about 1,000 books. We were at the time selling the video journal and our tutorials on DVDs, and we actually had a fulfillment company that was doing the pick and pack and ship, and so I just had them delivered to that company. And when people ordered the book, they were shipped there, so I didn't have to deal with the logistics.
That is one of the problems of fulfillment, and that the blurb takes care of the fulfillment.
Right.
In this case, you had a fulfillment company.
Yeah, I still have some in the basement. Remind me to give you a couple.
Okay.
This is not, I would say, for most photographers, even ones that are moderately well known, this is not a great economic model.
No.
I think the blurb approach of print on demand is the way to go. I would not do this again.
But John Sexton has done an approach which I think is really interesting. He does self-publishing now, and what he does is he pre-sells an early edition book signed with a print folio, either a print or a print folio, and basically pre-sells that and uses the pre-sales to actually finance the actual publication of the book. And that actually makes a lot of sense. But
If you're John Sexton.
Yeah, John is in a unique situation to be able to do that.
Yeah. And then, of course, to wrap this up, let's talk about the thing that every photographer can do, and that is make a great print, take it to a framing gallery, have a framer frame it, and then
Hang it on the wall.
Hang it on your, you can try and get a show somewhere. Local restaurants and bars and cafes are a very good venue. But how about your own wall?
Here's the print hanging in your living room.
And this is something that every photographer can do. This is not a great work of art. My wife's a New Yorker, so this has a sentimental attachment. This is
Brooklyn Bridge.
Yeah, this is shot from the Palisades on the Jersey side. Brooklyn Bridge, Manhattan skyline, peak of fall color. And that's it. It's just a personal photograph, and it was shot with a little Sony Nex 5. Nothing terribly, extravagant. But because it is hanging above the mantelpiece, it's viewed from a distance, the fact that it may not be of super high resolution doesn't really matter. Get down, get down, get down.
Yeah, you know what? It looks nice even up close, Michael.
Thanks.